Hey guys, we got another great video in store, and if you want to learn about plastic, follow along because we're going to dive into it.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hey team, Luke here of Crusader Machining, back for another video. As you can see from that very cool short clip, plastic is on the menu. The other day I was at a social function and a very, very non-aggressive man came up to me and said, "Hey Luke, I watch your videos, but my shop, I work with a lot of plastics and I don't see you talk about it often. Do you know anything about it?" So I told him, yeah, I do. And that's what we're going to cover today. I don't machine a lot of plastics, but I have an extensive experience with Delrin and some nylons. Over the years, I've had the pleasure of machining Delrin a lot. Today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of machining plastic. Now, all plastics are not created equal. Some of them are very easy to machine, some of them are not very easy. But the concepts and principles overall are the same for that middle of the road plastics. Meaning some you could have that are really, really difficult and a pain in your rear end to work with. This does not count for that. That's going to be a special situation that you're going to want to deal with your tooling manufacturer for. So let's hop right in. Some of the pros I find out while working with plastic are holding decent surface finishes is quite easy. You don't have to worry about abrasive chips banging on your part. You don't have to worry about tools blowing out. I like plastic for that reason. We've had a couple jobs where I had to hold a 32 micro finish. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, no problem. Another thing I like about working with plastics is it's very easy to machine. You don't have to worry about your spindle loads going crazy because you're pushing your tool too hard. You can get aggressive with your feed rates. In that sense, that's what I mean by easy to machine. If you're drilling, you can push it a little bit harder than you would on, say, titanium, obviously. Another pro that I like about it is I get great tool life. When we set up a job in plastic, I generally don't change any edges for the entire job. You really shouldn't have to. Your tool's not really going to get beaten up. The only time you would is if you were happen to weld chips around your tool or your part and it were to somehow damage your tool. But generally I get really great tool life. Another thing that I like about it is, on that same note, is the tooling that we use to machine plastic is generally inexpensive, or as I've heard before, cheap. We can use a lot of high speed. We don't have to go with performance carbide. That being said, I'm sure there's someone out there in a plastic shop that will say, no, for this particular job I had to go with a special insert. That's true. There is times in certain plastic jobs that you're going to want to have a high performance inserter tool designed simply for that particular type of plastic or application. Generally speaking, for what we do, I can use a high speed drill, punch a hole, come in there with a boring bar with one new edge, rough bore, finish bore, normal turn, groove, thread, everything without a problem. I'm not using very expensive specialized tooling. Those are some of the pros. Overall, for that reason, I love machining plastic because of the pros. But conversely, there are definitely some negatives or some cons to it. The first one I would say to that is it can be hard to break chips. Now, it can be hard to break chips. Some of the experience I've had when I've been drilling, I'm really unable to break a chip in certain jobs with plastic. It's just a long stringer that comes out. So I do a G83 pecking cycle. If you want to know what that is, see another video of mine for G83 peck drilling. For that, it helps a lot. You just set your parameter on your depth. It'll peck in, peck out, evacuating the chips and interrupting the cut. Another con to it that I notice is the material's easy to manipulate, meaning it can crush. You can crush plastic very easily, leave marks on it from your chuck jaws. If you're holding on raw stock, it doesn't matter, you're going to machine it. But if you're using a transfer spindle, sometimes if your chucking pressure is too high or using a 3-jaw chuck, because of the soft nature of plastic, it has a tendency to leave marks on the part where you grab. In that same method, because it's soft, I also noticed that sometimes it bends. On long, thinner parts, if you machine it, it does not have the rigidity of steel, obviously. So sometimes one of the cons or the negatives I notice about plastic, because it's easy to machine because it's not very hard. But because it's not very hard, it can bend. It can bend, it can break, it can leave marks Sorry for that brief interruption. Technical difficulties get the best of us. Continue with what I was saying. Another con that I find with plastic is chip weld. If I'm working especially on a bore and I'm not breaking the chip weld and my tool is inside and I got my surface footage a little bit high, it'll wrap around, it'll weld to the tool. You can machine plastic aggressively, but more so with your feed rate versus your surface footage. I find that when I get that heat too high, which happens from surface footage going up, I get a tendency to chip weld if I don't break the chip. One of the last cons that I would say about plastic is temperature change on critical features. I noticed that, say I got a plus or minus 5/10 bore, if I was on 303 stainless or 1215, I go from the machine to the bore gauge and it'll stay consistent. With plastic, I notice that sometimes I'll have a little bit more variation of dimension with temperature. If it's a little warmer outside, a little colder outside, a little bit more humidity. So what I like to do on tight tolerances is let it regulate on the bench out of the machine. So right now, that covers our pros and cons. What I want to do, I want to show you a quick video of me machining a cool Delrin part, and then we'll conclude the video. So there you have it. That's plastic. You could see in that video certain chips breaking, certain not. I got the PEC drill on a G83. So this goes out to that guy that wanted that video. His name was Chauncey. And he didn't know whether or not I talked a lot about plastic. I've got extensive experience with it, although I haven't worked with it a ton. But I do know a little bit about it over a couple decades of machining. That's my pro and con list. Now, if anybody out there that does have experience with plastic, chime in. What do you think? Is it easy to machine? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What tools do you use and what techniques do you have to manage it properly and make your day go very well machining plastic? Like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Instagram. Check me out on TikTok. And I'm also on Twitter, although I have 0 followers over there. But check me out, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.